Welcome to East Alabama Today, featuring topics, events, and interesting people from all over East Alabama. Hosted by Carl Brady. Now, let's get right to the show. Here's Carl Brady.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into East Alabama Today. I'm Carl Brady. Thanks for being with us on today's program. We have another paid political advertising show for you today featuring candidate Marilyn Hudson, who's a candidate for the Calhoun County District Judge's Office for Family Court in Calhoun County. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, let me remind you, if you have something that you would like to see featured on East Alabama Today, something going on in your community, in your neck of the woods, the best way to let me know about it is to send me an email, cbrady@tv24.tv. That's the best way to get in touch with me. If you have fairs, festivals, special events, things that are going on in your community, let us know about those things by sending me an email. And even if it's someone who you think is an interesting character in the community, maybe they're a writer or an artist or a musician, and you think they have an interesting hobby or something like that, and you'd like to see them featured on the show, all you have to do is send me an email, cbrady@tv24.tv. Now, we also want to remind you that you can go back and watch archived editions of East Alabama Today on the TV24 website. On the on-demand section, just go to tv24.tv, click on On Demand, go to East Alabama Today, and there you can see a whole series of past shows that you can watch at your convenience on your computer, your mobile device, however you would like to do that. In a minute, we'll get right back to the show, so stay with us. Well, everyone, welcome back into East Alabama Today. Again, I'm Carl Brady. Thank you for being with us on our program. We have another special guest with us today. Our guest is Marilyn Hudson. Marilyn, welcome to the program. It's great to have you here. And Marilyn, you are a candidate for one of the district judge positions in Calhoun County. That's
Yes.
The district judge that handles family court. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, tell us just quickly a little bit about family court and how that differs from the other parts of the court system.
Well, in some counties, every district judge handles every kind of case. They handle criminal, civil, and family. In Calhoun County, they have it separated. One judge does mostly civil, one judge does mostly criminal, and this position does mostly family court, modifications of child support, modifications of custody, divorce, and juvenile areas.
Okay.
It does not have to be that way, but that's the way it is in our county.
That's the way it's set up.
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk more about that coming up a little bit later on, but let's get to know you a little bit. You currently live in Jacksonville, is that correct?
Well, really Pleasant Valley.
Pleasant Valley. It's a
I did
Jacksonville
live
address,
in
but
Jacksonville.
Pleasant Valley. Well, just start us off. You have some ties to the U.S. Army.
Yes, I was born in Lauderdale County in Florence, and I was the only one of 23 grandchildren who lived on my grandparents' farm till I was 3 years old. It was a
How
great
many grandchildren?
life. 23.
Oh my gosh.
My dad was
Wow.
one of them. My dad was the oldest of 9.
Yeah.
And he drove a taxi at night, and Mother worked in a sewing factory, and Grandmother babysat me while they worked. And he did that so that he could go to Florence State College in the daytime and get his 2-year degree. And with that, he was able to join the Army and get a commission as an officer into the Military Police Corps. Well, the farm was a great place to grow up. I was constantly outside in the chicken house, jumping off the smokehouse roof. I played with the pigs in the pig pen, or I tried to. I was kind of a bad little girl. We didn't have indoor plumbing. We had a well, and it was across the street.
Oh, wow.
And Granddaddy had to put a yoke on his back with 2 buckets at the end and walk the water across the street 2 or 3 times a day. And one of the only times he ever whipped me, I wouldn't let him in the door. I don't know why. I was 3 years old. And he said, Marilyn, if you don't let me in the door, I'm going to put down these buckets and this yoke, and I'm going to give you a whipping. And he did.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful life, and I treasure it. Not many people get to live on a farm.
That's right. That's right.
Especially today.
It's one of the great things about Alabama and the communities, a lot of the communities of East Alabama, much of it is rural. And
Well, of course,
have
this
those kind
was
of experiences.
northwest
But you were,
Alabama.
right, you were in
but
Lauderdale County.
But it was wonderful, and I loved it. But Daddy got the commission and became a military policeman. We went in the Army. I say we because the whole family went in there.
Yeah.
In 1952, we went to Germany and spent 3 years. And Germany was interesting too. Daddy's military police companies were always not on post. They were out in the country. I do not know why. He never told me. And we lived in a 9-room house that actually a Nazi officer had lived in during the war. And there were only the 4 of us, me and Daddy and Mother and my brother. We rented it from some German people who were very nice. They drove a wagon. They didn't have a car. This is 1953 and 1954.
Yeah.
And it was called the honey wagon. And they came once or twice a week to spread the honey, which, as you well know, is the manure on the garden, because they kept a big garden in the backyard. We rented the house and they kept the garden. And of course, I always rode around in the wagon with them. And apparently, at that time, I could speak German. I learned to speak German from my little German friends, but of course, when I did not keep speaking German later in my life, I forgot it, and I don't know any now. But I could speak to them, and my mother and father couldn't. They didn't speak German, but children pick it up so much easier than adults.
Absolutely. Yeah. Post-war Germany must have been a very interesting place at that time.
It was beautiful, and this particular place, I think it was Straubing. We lived in Munich, Landshut, and Straubing, and this was Straubing, and it is close to the Czechoslovakian border. And of course, my mother went over to Czechoslovakia with the officers' club wives one time to a glass factory, and she got to watch them blow beautiful vases, and she brought one home to us, which I still have. It's one of my favorite possessions.
Wow.
But Germany has a wonderful climate. It's cold in the winter, but it seldom gets over 70 or 60 in the summer. It's just beautiful over there.
It sounds like it. So you had those few years as a young child in Germany, and then you ended up back over there in the 60s.
Yes, I did. Well, in the meantime, we've lived at Fort McClellan, Fort Rooker, Fort Gordon, Georgia, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Harrisburg Barracks, Pennsylvania, Omaha, Nebraska, and then back to, well, intermittently all these years.
Yeah.
And in Germany, we went again, and I lived in Pirmasens, which is up in the mountains. It's up a big mountain, and Kaiserslautern is down the mountain. I went to school in 8th and 9th grade there in Pirmasens, but in the 10th grade, we had to go, it was like a really long drive down the mountain to the high school in the 10th grade. And at one point, we rode the train. The train picked us, the bus picked us up at 6 in the morning and didn't deliver us home till 6:30. We had to go to the train station, ride the train, sit in the train station from 3:15 till 5 o'clock every afternoon, an unheated train station with a concrete floor and wooden benches.
Wow.
And a bunch of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And of course, the boys were always getting into something. In Germany, you can buy alcohol at any age, and they did do that some, those boys did, before they got on the train. But it was a 12-and-a-half-hour day, and I was very tired in the 10th grade.
Right.
But Germany, Pirmasens is beautiful. It had woods, we walked, I had lots of friends, I loved it. But it was the home of OSCOM, which is the Advanced Weapons Support Command at that time. Mother always said we were sitting on bombs. They had it armed. Post-war, even in 1963, was very unstable.
Yeah.
And at one point in March of 1963, and this is very hard to find in the newspaper, they didn't put it in the newspaper, and it's still hard to find. The Russian tanks were sitting on the border aimed toward Germany. They were about to go to war. And all the thousands and thousands of military dependents were in Europe. And if there had been a war, we would have all been right in the middle of it, because they could not get us out. And I'm not sure if they were on the Czechoslovakian border or the Hungarian border. But it was very traumatic, and it was supposed to be a secret, sort of, but everybody knew it because their fathers told them. and we thought that we were actually going to be in another combat situation.
Well, we see those things here in the States from a distance, and it makes a difference when you're right there in the middle of it.
Well, and of course, I was a kid, but you know, it still upset me, but it really upset my mother and father.
I'm sure, I'm sure. Well, how did you end up from Germany and all of these places selling here in Calhoun County?
Well, Daddy spent his 20 years in the military, and we moved here in '69. He was the provost marshal at Fort McClellan, his last tour. He retired in '70, and when he retired, he went to South Carolina to teach criminal justice, but I stayed here because I had a job. I worked at Sears and Roebuck at that time. I worked in the credit department. So I've had other experience besides being an attorney. And on that note, I worked at Owens Corning Fiberglass one time as a beamer. I weighed bobbins of fiberglass.
Yeah.
It was manual labor, it was swing shift, and it was very, very hard work. Then I also, well, I had some other little clerical jobs after Sears and Roebuck, but in 1975 I started working at Fort McClellan at the MP school, the military police school. And I worked there and at the Charleston Naval Shipyard and at Anston Army Depot for about 15 years.
Wow.
So I have been other than an attorney. And if anyone knows about the GS scales, the GSs are GS 1 through 18 as a civil service worker. I was a GS 2, 3, and 4. So I was not at the top, and I did not make a lot of money.
Yeah. I've never understood those scales myself there. So.
I did not make a lot of money, and it was, but I especially enjoyed working at Fort McClellan.
Awesome. Well, we need to take a quick commercial break, and we'll come back and talk more with Marilyn Hudson. Marilyn is a candidate for Calhoun County District Judge, subject to the June 5th primaries. So we'll have more coming up in a moment. Welcome back to East Alabama Today. Again, I'm Carl Brady. Thank you for being with us on our program. Our guest today is Marilyn Hudson. Marilyn is a candidate for Calhoun County District Court Judge in the Family Court Division, and subject to the primaries coming up here in Alabama on June the 5th. So Marilyn, again, welcome to the program. Glad to have you here. And we've talked about your early childhood experiences, military and things like that. So let's get a little more up to date. College, law school, and a career in the law.
I went back to college when I was 43 years old. My oldest son went to college. He went to UAB. We lived in Jacksonville. He wouldn't go to Jacksonville State, 6 blocks away. They all want to leave home at that age.
Right.
So I started college, and I went to Jacksonville State for several years, and then I actually went to Samford to graduate. And at Samford, which is a Baptist university, I took a lot of religion courses, Christian religion, religion of the world, counseling courses. All this is in addition to the other courses you take, of course, the history, the English, etc. I really loved college. And then I was fortunate enough to be admitted to the Cumberland School of Law at Samford in 1998. And I was 48 years old. I was the oldest person in my class of 205. And I loved law school, but it was very, very, very hard. It was mentally challenging. If you can imagine, if you think you're a little bit smart when you go to law school, you're quickly disabused of that notion because all 204 other people are smarter than you.
Yeah.
They've been valedictorians. It's really a lot of competition. But I made friends who were the age of my sons.
Right.
In their 20s, and I had friends, and we had little social events, and we studied together, mostly the girls. But one of the challenges was going back and forth from Jacksonville to Birmingham.
I'm sure.
The traveling. So I did have to live there during the week. Most of the time that I was in law school, it was too hard to go back and forth 200 miles a day, 5 days a week. And I actually lived with a lady in a little bitty garage apartment, and at one point I had my hot plate on a table next to her Cadillac in her garage, and that's where I cooked my breakfast every morning. And then on Fridays, I would drive home.
Those experiences like that, though,
Were-
make the end result that much more valuable to you.
Yes, because it was an absolute challenge.
Right.
The competition, the other people that you always perceive are smarter than you, no matter what you do. You can't go through this life being the brightest and the best. I have learned that all my life, but definitely during law school. When I graduated from law school, I actually became an attorney at the age of 53, and I have been an attorney for 15 years. I have practiced in family court doing divorce and child custody. I have done contracts, probate, I write wills, trust. I have done criminal law, misdemeanors, felonies, all sorts of crimes in district court. I have practiced in 7 counties, including Calhoun, Etowah, Cherokee, etc., surrounding counties. And I have practiced in municipal courts in the cities, district courts, and criminal courts, and circuit courts. I have a very well-rounded practice, and I am happy to have been able to do this at my age and my station in life. I never dreamed when I was young that I would go to college and finish, much less be an attorney.
Right.
I'm sort of a late bloomer. I found from my children, my sons, who were very, very smart and made A's all through school, I decided if they could do it, so could I. They actually were my role models. My sons were, because they did the things in high school that I was not able to do many years ago. I did go to 13 schools in 12 years in the Army.
Right.
Back then, officers moved around a lot more than they do now. I have also practiced I have appealed cases to the Court of Civil Appeals and the Court of Criminal Appeals, and I was very lucky to be able to give oral arguments at the Court of Criminal Appeals in my case as a special prosecutor. Approximately 1% of all the attorneys get to do that in front of the Court of Criminal Appeals.
Right.
And I did prevail in that case. I also took an appeal to the Alabama Supreme Court. I did not get to give oral arguments, but I did an appeal to them. So I have a very well-rounded experience, and I feel that that is important, because even though this court is mainly family, that may not always be true. There are always situations where every judge in the courthouse hears all sorts of other cases, and I feel that the challenges of learning to practice in jurisdictions in front of all sorts of judges and in all counties, I think it has prepared me to be a judge. I think I have a well-rounded practice, and I think I will be a good judge.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit. We touched a little bit early on about district court, the criminal side, and then and family court, and how that's separated in Calhoun County. Talk a little bit more about that and how that's different.
Well, in Etowah County, the district judges hear all cases. They hear the civil, the criminal, and the family. They're not separated like they are in Calhoun County. It's just an individual preference of the counties. And even in Calhoun County, there are times if a judge is very sick or simply something happens and he cannot hold his court dates, the judges can take each other's courts. So that means the judge who does mostly civil may occasionally hear the criminal cases. And actually in Calhoun County, the civil judge does hear half of the traffic cases, and the criminal judge hears half of the traffic cases. But the family court judge has been known to go to criminal court.
Just when to fill in
if
when
it is
needed
necessary.
And those kind of things. Yeah.
And of course, the circuit judges hear all cases when there is a circuit court trial, it may be a civil trial, a personal injury, a lawsuit on contracts, it could be a criminal trial. All those judges hear them all.
Why is there, what's the difference between the circuit court and the district court? Why are there two in the same counties in those same areas?
The circuit court judges hear all cases in Calhoun and Cleburne County. The district court judges are only in Calhoun County at the Calhoun County Courthouse, because the Cleburne County Courthouse has its own district judge. The circuit judges from Calhoun go back and forth to Cleburne County.
Right, so they serve, circuit judges are like the
Yes.
old-fashioned circuit riding judges. They actually serve more than just one courthouse.
Yes.
They go throughout the community. Now, with the district court being separated in Calhoun County, do you think that's an advantage for the citizens, or is it is it a good thing, a bad thing? Can the family court judge kind of be someone who specializes in family issues and has a background maybe in counseling and things like that, along with the law?
Well, he could, but I don't think it's a good idea. I think that the court each judge should hear all kinds of cases. That is just my personal opinion, but the judges at the courthouse have elected to
keep things
separate
separated
it this way. To my knowledge, of course, all the judges have a Juris Doctor, because you have to be an attorney to be a judge. I don't know that any of them have any specialization in counseling or psychology. That's not, I don't know that.
Right.
The only exception is the probate judge, who does not have to
does not have to be an attorney.
But our present probate judge in Calhoun County is an attorney.
Okay, so we're going to take another commercial break and come back and finish up in just a moment, so stay with us. Welcome back for our final segment of East Alabama Today, as we visit with Marilyn Hudson, who's a candidate in Calhoun County for district judge in Calhoun County, subject to the primary coming up on June 5th. And Marilyn, let's talk a little bit about the office of a judge and what a judge actually does. Tell us about that.
A judge is an arbiter of justice. He is supposed to be completely in the middle. He is not on the side of any party. He's not on the side of the defendant or the prosecutor in a criminal case. He's not on the side of any party. He is completely independent, an independent arbiter. He takes the facts of the case and he applies them to the law. He listens to the facts. He listens to the witnesses. He must decide who's telling the truth and who's not, and where the truth is and what it is, and apply the facts that he finds in a court of law to the law and make his decision. There's no other way to do it.
Right.
Of course, you do need to throw in a little common sense sometimes.
Exactly, which is getting a little scarce in some places.
But he or she never favors people that he knows. If he knows some of the people in the case, if he's friends with the prosecutor, if he is friends with the defense attorneys, you cannot let this sway you. You must be impartial to be a fair judge. And there's no other way to do it, and that is something that I can do. I am not, as you say, in with the in crowd at the courthouse. Even though I like a lot of people, I'm not close to them. It will be very easy for me to be independent and impartial. A judge is supposed to be honest, honorable, and fair. He follows the rules of ethics at all times. Judges are not politicians. Even though they run on the banner of a political party in the state of Alabama, we are not politicians. We do not make the law. The law is made by the legislature in Montgomery. We also must follow what we call case law. If a case is appealed to a higher court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, the Court of Civil Appeals, the Supreme Court, then those judges must look at the law, and they must decide sometimes what it means and how to apply it. Because as you know, a statute may be written and it may be very short and succinct. But when you get into the real world and you have all these facts in a case, they become very complicated, And that's why things are appealed to higher courts. So we as judges in the lower court, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, must take not only the statutes in the law book that our legislatures have enacted, but we also must look at the case law and look at cases that are similar to our cases. But we must always be fair and impartial. We must be honest. And we judges have a code of ethics that is even separate from just being a lawyer. If you are not sure that what you're doing is right, you need to call the ethics committee and ask them what they think.
Right.
You need to read your book I have my book of ethics on my desk, and I have to look at it every now and then. We're not politicians. Even though we're out campaigning and even though we're asking for your vote, we don't make those laws. We simply enforce them.
Right. All right. Well, how do people get in touch with you? If anyone has questions, comments, support, whatever, people would like to reach out to you, how can they do that?
I have a phone that is listed, my office phone. It is 256-644-5136. I do want to add that it recently was knocked out by the storm for 30 days, and I had trouble accessing my voicemails, but it finally got fixed. So if you can't reach me by phone, if I don't call you back within 24 hours, you can email me at attorneyhudson1, numeric 1, @gmail.com.
And we also have on the graphic Marilyn Hudson campaign @gmail.com as well. That's another way to get in touch with you.
Yes, and I also have a P.O. Box 753, Jacksonville 36265 if you would like to write me a letter.
Okay.
But feel free to call, and please do leave a voicemail, or I may not know that you called.
That's right.
And I hope that you will consider voting for me in the Republican primary on June the 5th.
All right, Marilyn, thank you very much for being with us on the
Thank
program
you.
today. Good luck on June 5th. And folks, we want to thank you for being with us today here on East Alabama Today. Have a great week.